I should at least talk about the topic today. We are going to be talking about customer retention and specifically, and we've had a few conversations about this over the last few months, which is kind of escaping the discount death trap or spiral or whatever you want to call it.
Race to the bottom.
Um, a race to the bottom, and that happens in many industries as they mature. But the reality is that discounts work, right?
Yeah.
For driving customers. And so, when we run a lot of advertising for dispensaries, and we definitely see good engagement when you offer a big discount.
Mhm.
However, it's not really a sustainable business model, and discounting is not a brand story, right? You can't have a brand identity if your brand is discount.
Yeah.
Um, so let's talk kind of high level about how you approach thinking about that and um, how you're able to convince people to not just discount everything.
Yeah. Well, the high level conversation starts with putting people in place who know what they're doing and can look at the data and see what it's telling us, right? I cannot take full credit for the fact that, we don't use discounts as our primary strategy. We have a really amazing inventory analyst and buyer who takes a look weekly at, what our numbers are doing to see, where we stand in terms of margin, how we're satisfying the needs of our partners and vendors. And taking that information, distilling it on the marketing level is where you can actually start to create strategy on doing something different that actually works, right? So I have to give a lot of credit to Mason, who works with us at Marion Maine. He does all of that kind of analysis to give us those insights. And I take that and say, how can we get creative with that? Um, so that for me, honestly, is the biggest thing is getting the data, taking a look at it, and then starting there. In terms of how we approach things differently at Marion Maine, it's very community driven and community based. We know that we stand at the intersection of um, community and culture because of who our owner is. She was, one of the youngest Black women in the country at the time when she founded Marion Maine, the youngest Black woman in the country to own a legal and licensed dispensary, which on its own was an amazing feat, and without equity licensing at the time, right? So we knew that she came with this. Background in the industry of being respected, and people were coming there to support her. And we didn't run away from that. A lot of people, would have said, I want to kind of separate the entity from the person and make it its own thing. But we embraced that in the strategy that we use to push Marion Maine out there. And people buy into people, right? Like, we're seeing a lot of like founder-led brands right now. And Hope definitely exemplifies that. And within the first few years, gave us a solid foundation upon which people bought in for her, but then stayed for the experience. So that's kind of the way we've approached it at a high level.
Okay, great. It does help to have some sort of identity as well around the brand. Now you mentioned looking at the data, which is something we do lots of. Um, what what is an example of a data insight that you're able to pull out that led to sort of actionable strategies that played out in a way that you wanted it to?
Yeah. One of the things that we saw was that budtender incentivization has been one of the biggest drivers of success for us. When we had more sparks run in a certain month for a certain brand, we saw that that brand went up. And I think most brands are aware of this at this point. They know that the budtenders are going to be the number one recommender of their brand to customers. Um, and so we ran, I'm not going to give away all the sauce, but
Sure.
we ran a really, intriguing incentive with a particular brand who was down month over month for a good half of the end of year last year, or a good portion of the year last year. And what we saw was that just with that one incentive, their their sales tripled within 2 months. And then since then has it continued to grow because of the fact that they had a strong recommendation. People experienced a strong recommendation, liked and fell in love with the product, and continue to come back. Another insight that's really been important for us is looking at what our discount, not just our discount rate, but what kinds of discounts perform the best for us. We noticed that in our category, in our area community, our two highest discounts were our wisdom discount, which is our senior citizen retirement age discount, and our veterans discount. Makes sense is that in that we live in the DMV, where a lot of government workers are here, a lot of people who are, at the forts nearby, they retire here and they stay here. And so, knowing that those were our top two discounts, we didn't have to do huge discounts. We need to make sure that those discounts were optimized for that audience, right? And so, a lot of the times it's making sure that, we're looking at what intersections overlap in different identities. A lot of people who are veterans sometimes, I don't want to make medical claims here, but sometimes will suffer from things like PTSD or also will have things like physical ailments. And therefore, our topicals and our medical grade items at the store, medical items, are going to, be what is the biggest draw for them. So then we now know that we can, based on those discounts and who has redeemed those discounts, segment things like our campaigns and our outreach to those audiences to now, say Avexia might be best for you, or, this brand might be best for you based on that. And then they gain, those brands are able to gain customer loyalty, which means we as a store gain more revenue, and they come back to find it at our store in general, which is increasing our retention.